under your butts.
Well, good evening, fellow heretics. Welcome to tonight's episode of Nerds and Heresy. I'm your host, Captain Dadpool. My co-host tonight is the sentient encyclopedia herself, Natty Nat. We have a special guest co-host tonight, Oz, from the Atheist Network group. He's going to help me run this here interview. And our guest, of course, is someone named Aron Ra. I've never heard of him, but apparently he's a big deal. So I invited him on, figured, what the hey. No, seriously, thanks, Aron, for coming on. I was a fan of yours even as a Christian because I was never a biblical literalist. So I always enjoyed your content on YouTube and everything, and I thought that what you were doing was helping out my mission or whatever that was at the time. But now I'm an atheist, so I'm an even bigger fan. I thought that what you were doing was what's that? What was that?
I got an echo.
I'm sorry. I think that might have been me. My
Was
bad.
that you? God damn, Nat. Professionalism. All right, we got Aron Ra on here. Some professionalism, please.
Yeah, for my sake, right?
Appreciate that. All right. Anyway, Aron, why don't you go ahead and tell whoever's watching whatever it is you want them to know about yourself.
All right. Well, I am an activist. I'm an atheist activist. I'm on the board of directors of American Atheists. And what I do primarily is I challenge, I promote secular education, and I promote science education, particularly in public schools, but they're being infiltrated by creationism. And so I have to argue against science denialists, or rather reality denialists, whether they are young earth creationists or flat earthers or some combination thereof. And anti-vaxxers, people who don't think that viruses exist, people who think that the universe is only part of God's imagination and that they themselves do not exist, only God exists. Any of that kind of woo thinking, all of the magical, mystical healing and all of that, and prayer warriors and all of this. The thing that really drives me on that is that I put lies in the same category as violence, that you shouldn't use lies except in a desperate moment of self-preservation, perhaps, and maybe not excusable even then. Those sorts of situations. But what I see are people that are trying to teach, quote unquote, teach absolute falsehoods in order to control what people believe, in order to control what people think and how they vote. And so, I got my first moderated debate. My opponent was a young earth creationist who wanted to teach the weaknesses of evolution. And he admitted in writing in this public debate that he knew that there were transitional species in the fossil record. But he said it's important that we teach the students there are none, because it's important that they believe there are none. So he's admitting that we should lie to the students in order to control what they believe and therefore control what they vote.
That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, so this is what I do full time, and it's my only gig, my only means of sustenance. I need all the help I can get. So if you are pleased at my work, please consider patreon.com/ARONRA.
Yeah, and when we're all wrapped up here, I'm gonna post all of his links in the description. I haven't done that yet because I'm bad at this, but I'm gonna make sure I do that after. All right, well, let's get started with some questions. Oz, you want to go first?
Absolutely, and Aron, it's again, it's a delight to meet you and finally get to talk to you. And I do have a few questions, but first, I do tell you that a friend of yours and mine told me to say one thing to you. Anthony Magnabosco said, "Light beer."
Ew.
Light beer is not legally beer.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
It's not.
Tell him to go fuck off.
Yeah, the last time that I spoke with Mr. Magnabosco about this, I made fun of him for still drinking yellow.
Yeah, he wanted me to make sure that was said. And then we also had another long-standing friend of yours that I think you have kind of a love-hate relationship with, that wanted to come on and just take a couple minutes to say hi and chat. Has he joined us yet?
Yeah, he is. Should I bring him up? Is this him?
Go ahead.
All right, here goes. Hello, sir.
Yeah, good evening, folks. Kent Hovind here, Dinosaur Adventureland.
Oh no.
That is scary.
Terrifying.
That's probably not as scary as where you're going, Aaron. So it's good to see you again.
Dude, that is eerie.
The shirt and the glasses, everything. Everything about it.
I don't know what
I'm
y'all
not
talking
exactly
about.
sure
That's
why
him.
this is so scary to you. Of course, we've had a number of debates about evolution and how dumb evolution is. Okay?
I'm sorry,
I'm here
Don.
to help.
If you don't recognize the character he's playing, I'm expecting that maybe he's going to be trading in the Hawaiian shirt for another striped one or another orange one, because he was just arrested a few days ago for spousal abuse.
I forgot about that.
Of course, that's all unfounded. Of course,
Plot twist.
I never do anything like this. A picture of my wife. Okay, here to help.
I saw this beautiful thing where this guy's ex-wives plural, are getting together in the comments section of this video to compare notes about the things they've witnessed him doing.
Oh wow!
Abusing women, abusing children, and so on. Yeah, what a loving guy.
I mean, we could sit here and talk about things that are untrue, like evolution. But I think probably the better thing to do here is maybe just read from Genesis 1, so that you can see really what the Bible has to say about this. Okay.
I was just about to say, the only thing wrong with your impersonation is that you hadn't ended at least 3 sentences with the word okay.
Okay.
You also have to remember to cough almost every sentence.
Okay.
Yeah,
Look, Oz asked me to come on here and maybe educate you folks a little bit about evolution and how it's dumb. It's like, you believe that your ancestors are soup, okay? And when all the water rains down on the rocks, that brings forth life. And I'm not really sure how that works, because we know that dogs never produce non-dogs, okay? Here to help.
That's a pretty accurate quote.
Yeah, that is much better than I do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, I'm gonna let you folks get on with your show here, because I clearly none of you are serious about understanding science, and I want to tell you, come on down to Dino Land, and
Broken.
we'll give you a discount, only $149.99. Okay.
Hey,
The
Kent,
heart's broken, Kent.
hey, Kent, real quick before you go,
real. Yes.
if we all commit to come on a Wednesday, do we get a free pass for what is it, Whack an Atheist Wednesday?
Is that what they have?
Wait, whack off an atheist? What? I'm there.
I'm not really sure about that word free. Severe discount. Okay, I tell you what, if you get my 497-part video series, we'll talk about it. Okay.
$50.
Oh wait, no, Kent. Now hold on. If you can, the whole whack a atheist Wednesday, if that happens, does that mean that I can stone an adulterer? So like you'll be there, right?
What happened was.
What happened was.
Well, look, I'm feeling a little bit of pressure here, so I'm just going to go. I'm going to kind of duck out here. So y'all enjoy yourselves in your trip to hell, okay? And good, Aaron. It was Aaron. It was good to see you again. Okay.
Oh,
yeah. So, but you guys stay sexy, okay?
Always.
Thanks, Kent.
Deal.
That is disturbing how well he does.
Oh, I love Dr. Josh so much. I love him so much.
I do too. I just didn't. I've never seen him in that kind of regalia. I've never seen him do that whole improv. Yeah.
Oh, the first time I heard him do it, I was in tears. Like, where did this come from? Like,
dude, like,
yeah,
that was all Oz, by the way. He texted me and had me call him, and he was like, "Hey, what if we did this?" And I was like,
I'm
yes.
glad you didn't tell me. I loved the surprise. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I've got to get in touch with him. He set up. He got somebody that I wanted to interview for years, and he got them on my show. So I want him to be involved in that. On the next Matter of Fact Science, which I think is this Tuesday. No, it's not this Tuesday. It's next Tuesday. Where I'm going to be interviewing Professor Francesca Stavrakopoulou, who is a Bible scholar at the University of Exeter. And she's an archaeologist. And what makes her amazing is she doesn't believe a word of the Bible, but she thinks it's wonderful literature. If you can just get past the fact that it's all fiction.
One of those.
Oh, I've heard of her.
Bessa, are you familiar with her, Nat?
I've heard of her. Her name has popped up a few times in a few little places. She's a gem.
Yeah, I can't wait to interview her.
Oh, I'm gonna watch that.
So
one.
you are actually interviewing her?
I am.
When is that going to happen?
Sadly, because she's in the UK, the time difference is such that it's going to have to be in the morning for me. So I'm not going to get quite the prime time audience that I would like to have. I'll check my calendar real quick. I think that's not this week. That's next week. I think it's Tuesday. Yes, 10 a.m. Central Time.
Okay, so I can kind of relate to that. I have Dr. Bart Ehrman coming on.
How did you get him?
I gave him the money he asked for.
Crowdfunding.
Wow. Because I would love to have a conversation with that guy.
So
much.
Bring him back on.
Yeah, he's expensive, but I used my cult following to raise the money.
That does.
Yeah, one of the reasons I want to have a conversation with him is we famously disagree on a key point. But two, when I took it was a very important class for me. I took a history of comparative world religions, and it was entirely based. The course was based on the books of Bart Ehrman.
Really?
The professor was a Methodist minister, but he had a PhD in theology, or THD if you call it. But I mean, he'd been all over the world. He was a well-seasoned, a very competent professor of his field, and he loved Ehrman. And I respect Ehrman very much too. I would love to have a conversation, especially about the thing that we disagree on.
Is that the historicity of Jesus?
Yeah, well, I have a different take on it than a lot of mythicists do.
Yeah,
I don't think that if he heard my version of it, I don't think that he would be really adverse to it. I don't think that there was. I wouldn't say that Jesus is entirely just a myth. My conviction is that if you had a time machine and somebody who could speak Aramaic, you go back in a TARDIS, for example, go hunt this guy down. The problem you're going to find is that there's not just one of them. There's a handful of real and fictional Jesus-I that are combined into this collection of legends, that the legends are deeply filtered, that they're largely enhanced and embellished, that if you could find one central character on which most of it is based, that no Christian would recognize that as their Jesus, nor would that Jesus, if you took him forward in time and showed him Jesus Christ Superstar, he wouldn't recognize that movie was supposed to be about him. I think it would be very much like if you could go back in time and find Robin Hood and bring him forward in time, he would not know who the hell Maid Marian is because that character was made up centuries later. And the things that he did that he thinks he would be remembered for, he's not remembered for at all. We remember him for other things that were completely made up that he never had anything to do with, so he wouldn't recognize his own story. Much like Vlad Tepes. If you went back to Romania and discovered Vlad and found Vlad Tepes.
Vlad the Impaler.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He has reasons that he should be remembered in history, but what's he remembered for? Shit he never had anything to do with.
Amen.
That's a fair point. Can't argue with that.
And I think King Arthur would be in the same category.
Oh, absolutely. Paul Bunyan, too.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Bunyan would be different. Paul Bunyan would be the typical mythicist position, whereas an entirely fictional character with no basis in truth at all. I think
maybe it's not Paul Bunyan. Who's the gentleman that battled the train? I
forget that rhyme. God, was it Casey
John?
Jones?
John
Henry. John Henry.
John Henry.
Yes,
that's the one I meant.
Henry.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, John Henry.
So a kernel of truth.
I can still sing the song.
Yeah, Johnny Appleseed is another one. There's just the tiniest kernel of truth, but most of it is embellishment.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you find that's true of a lot of people. I mean, like there's one guy that famously said, "I regret that I have only but one life to give for my country." Right? Yeah. What a moving and stirring thing. You know what he actually said? I was only following orders.
Really?
Yeah. Totally ruins your history, doesn't it?
Close.
It does.
I wish that we had a time machine so that a handful of Christian evangelicals could go back and not find their Jesus, or worse, find him.
Find a bunch of him.
And realize that Monty Python was way closer to the mark with Life of Brian than Mel Gibson was with The Passion of Christ.
Oh, it was absolutely. This is actually, I stand in this concept more so than the myth, simply because it is more accurate to have a bunch of thought up or actual events be linked to only one person rather than a bunch of multiple stories that happened around the same timeline.
Yeah,
be linked to those multiple people. Why not just make this one person godlike? Why not?
So look at Moses. Here's a compilation of a whole bunch of different people. So Moses is he is partly Hammurabi, he's partly the Pharaoh Snefru, and he's partly some other character whose name evades me at the moment. But I mean, these are completely unrelated stories that ended up being attached to the same name because people like stories about this guy, so they just changed the name to that guy, changed the exploits to be that guy. And this is a kind of a storytelling trope that people have repeated down through the centuries, where one character, let's call him Hercules, for example, is suddenly given all of these different labors and all these different heroic quests, and as long as the name is the same, then everybody's going to buy into it. Krishna, Lord Krishna, the Hindu god, he has way more exploits and adventures and tales of heroism than Jesus and Hercules combined.
The whole book of them.
Go Bible. All right. So, Aron, let's dig into creationism. So, first thing, just going and like reviewing some of the videos that I'd watched in the past. One of the things you said that I was like, this might be a great starter question. You talked about creationism being the denial or direct denial of science. When you say that, what can you unpack that for us? What's that mean?
Yeah, specifically, it's a denial of the principles of scientific methodology, specifically methodological naturalism. And while it has to be a denial of evolution by definition, there's plenty of Christians who accept evolution and who, as what they would say themselves, in a broad sense, they accept that there was a creator. They don't accept creation, because its creation is juxtaposed with evolution. So creation is a rejection of evolution in whole or in part. But more importantly, it's not just a rejection of evolution, it's a rejection of methodological naturalism. It's a rejection of the idea that you can't say that something is true until you can show the truth of it. Because all religion, all of it, is based on making up shit you want to believe and then saying it like it's true. Claiming facts that are not facts and pretending to know things no one even can know, which would be considered lying in any other application. But in religion, it's called revealed truth.
Yep. Divine revelation.
Yep.
I'm really glad I didn't have to go more than 14 years with this. I'm really glad I started questioning things young. It's stuff like this, I'm just like, oh God, this is.
Tell me the backstory behind that. What you just said.
What I just said.
Go ahead, Nat.
Oh, I began questioning things very early on. My mother is a psychologist, so she analyzed my behavior growing up. She was not a childhood development or children development psychologist. So she would analyze me as an adult, even though I was a kid, which led me to do research from what I could understand, because she would say things to me and she'd be like, look it up. And I'd be like, okay, so I'm going to go look up what she just told me. There's a little bit of trauma.
I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to live with a mom who told me to fact check anything ever in my life.
Oh,
that was forbidden.
Fire in the ass later. Let me tell you what.
My family, they don't fact check nothing.
Well, so here's the fun part, and I'll get to this fun part. There's a kicker at the end, a nice little twist. But no, so at a young age, I was told to look things up, and so I did. Libraries were like my favorite place. I was a big nerd. I didn't have a whole lot of friends, didn't really care. Went to Sunday school every Sunday, Wednesday night classes, all that fun stuff. Got confirmed when I was 12, I believe. And within a month after being confirmed, I had to go into surgery. And I had, and Ricky Dadpool knows this, my mother brought in the pastor to pray over me for my surgery. I wasn't nervous until the pastor showed up and started praying that I make it through, which made me think that, oh God, I might die. Like that didn't even cross my mind until I was in surgery with the gown on, and like they were all praying, and it wasn't just my pastor, it was my pastor, my assistant pastor, the Korean pastor, and like 5 other members of church that are like super duper into it. And
so you have the guy whose job it is to wish upon a star, and then you have the assistant star wisher.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had the assistant star wisher. I had the translated to another language assistant star whisperer or star, wisher. And then I had a bunch of followers that just showed up, and and they all prayed over me, and it was lovely. And within a month or so after my surgery, I started questioning my youth pastor. Now I was questioning him before, but my questions after surgery became a lot more serious and had a lot more a lot more to do with
Forgive me for this dark humor, but I've heard a number of other people say that they were questioning their youth pastor, and it usually happens in the passions of romance that they begin questioning their youth pastor.
Oh, I love it.
No,
I've often said that regarding the clergy,
yeah,
the way to tell the difference between the Protestant clergy and the Catholic clergy is which gender of child they molest.
Oh shit!
Oh my God!
No, okay, so my youth pastor was I don't even remember his name. Like he was Eric, maybe. He was around for probably 3 or 4 months, and I questioned him so heavily that he left. Like he up and left. I was retained and detained during worship because of how aggressively I would fight the pastor on some of his concepts. His wife had me sit in a room one time, and we had a little prayer discussion because she thought I was having some issues. This is just the Methodist Church too, so this is like the super liberal side of Christianity. And within a matter of months, like, I mean, I hadn't even turned 13, but by then I was like, yeah, I'm definitely not Christian anymore. Like I got my hands on Origin of the Species, and was like, how in the world was Darwin Catholic? Like, I couldn't understand.
He wasn't.
He was.
He was C of E.
Was he really? I thought he was.
He went to Christ College studying to be a preacher.
I was under the impression that he was Catholic because when he married his niece, she was Catholic, and they had a Catholic wedding.
I would be very surprised if I'm wrong about that, but I'm open to the possibility.
I am open to being wrong as well. So I guess we'll find this out later. But
I got to share one with you because I have a similar kind of a thing. My family didn't want to. I obviously was having atheist leanings early childhood, because I remember when my mom told me at between 8 and 9, or let's say 8 and 9 years old, she told me that you're supposed to love Jesus even more than your own children. And so she's telling me that she loves this guy who's never been here. I've never met him. This phantasm. She's supposed to love him more than me. How do you tell your child that you love someone more than you love them?
You don't. You're not supposed to.
Yeah, and so she tells me that the devil is the ultimate enemy and everything. And I had to wonder. I actually asked her, seriously, this question: what is his motivation? Because I couldn't see anything about Satan that would make sense.
No,
sounds like there's nothing about that character that, and so when I went, I wanted to celebrate holidays in a traditional way, just to experience holidays. And when it came to Easter, I said, well, let's do a traditional celebration of Easter. What is that? Well, we go to church. I'm like, really? That's the way you celebrate Easter?
No, you don't just go to church. You go to church at the crack of dawn.
Well,
you wake your ass up, you get dressed in some ugly ass pastels, and then you go to church at the crack of dawn. Yeah, and then you listen to children scream for like 2 hours afterwards.
They took me to church, and the pastor was saying something, or the minister, or whatever the hell they call this guy. He was saying that they had discovered these footprints in Glen Rose, Texas, of a human sandaled footprint walking alongside dinosaur footprints. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, so pre-Columbian Indians we're walking with some like lost species of dinosaur that still existed in those times? That's what I'm thinking, because I was 11 at that point.
Yeah, no, that's
and so the preacher then said, proving that those were Adam's footprints. And I thought, wait, there's no way you can identify the owner of the fucking sandals.
Yeah.
Right. And so I remember saying to my mother or my grandmother, whichever one, I said, he's lying. And I got punched in the stomach by my own family, because you do not question the guy behind the podium.
Oh.
Yeah. So they didn't take me to church a lot. I remember I was brought into what they call primary
that's
school.
Get out of it.
Yeah. I'm seven, I think, years old. And they take me into a primary school, my grandparents' house. And so they said that they're gonna get the class to sing Joy to the World. Now, when I was 7 or 8 years old, it was roughly 1970. So a top 40 hit at that time was Joy to the World by, what the hell was in it? Three Dog Night. And so they say, and a 1, and a 2, and a 3. And I belt out, Jeremiah was a bullfrog. And that, of course, did not match what they were singing at all.
No, but it's wonderful.
Hey, Ricky, did you have a super chat?
Yeah.
I did. Thank you, Oz. Just some geek guy asks, he says he's an ex-Shiite Muslim here. Hey, Aron, which is worse, Islam or Christianity?
Oh, hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on which century you're talking about, but Islam is right now is clearly worse. And I don't just mean if you're in a Sharia country, and I've been to Sharia countries, and when people talk about their violations of their freedom of speech, because they get reprimanded for using Facebook to do their anti-vax conspiracies, they have no idea what freedom of speech issues are.
They don't.
I was in the United Arab Emirates, and I'm sitting at a table with a whole bunch of Arabs who had never met an atheist before, and one of them gives me like the basic rundown on why he believes in Islam and everything. And so my response was, okay, here's 5 ways that we know that the Quran is wrong. And my host immediately grabbed me upon saying these words in a public restaurant and says, we've got to go. And inside of 1 minute, we're in the car and down the road, because it turns out I would spend 4 years in prison for being in a public place and saying the Quran is wrong.
Wow.
That's the difference of freedom of speech.
Yep.
Did you say something that put your ass in prison?
Well, I mean, at least you weren't going to get beheaded for it.
Yeah, I'm in the.
I mean, you got to think about the positives here, okay?
Yeah, I'm in Dubai. Of all the Sharia countries, Dubai is the best one to be in.
It really is.
They hardly chop your hands off anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Hammurabi's code is only slightly used.
What was that, Oz?
As I say, it's 2021 and they still have blasphemy laws.
Of course they do. I mean, Christians do too, but they don't call them blasphemy laws.
Ireland passed a blasphemy law in 2010, 2011.
Did they?
So they hosted the World Atheist Convention in Dublin. And I attended that. And the purpose for doing it in Dublin was to blaspheme as much as we can, just to try to get them to enforce that law.
Wow.
See, in the free countries, in realms where you have this imposed make-believe is enforced upon you, then blasphemy, heresy, and apostasy are treated as capital crimes because they don't allow free thought. So that's why we held the World Atheist Convention in Dublin in 2011, was just to force that into the open.
That's how it's fucking done.
No, yeah, it absolutely is. Well, I wish you had known. Well, I probably would have been too young to do this. I would have been tried in a children's court, I'm sure, but I still would have loved to have joined that. That sounds great.
It was a great time. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Do we want to talk about the other super chat, or can we?
By all means, take your questions from your chat.
Oh yeah, I just said.
I think it's a comment.
Yeah, it's more a comment. Arm, you thought it was bad enough that you got punched in the gut. I got smacked behind the head because I questioned some of the things. Getting smacked in the back of the head is not as crazy nearly as it can be Like certainly a lot of Christians experience that by questioning the Bible. Fuck, just today I heard, what was it? Fuck, I can't remember what preacher it is, but he like bragged about beating his kid for asking a certain question. And
Is this the preacher who said that he punched the kid straight in the chest?
No, not that one. That's
Okay.
that's another good example. But this one was, I forget his name. He was like, he was, now, you know, I've played tennis for many years. You know how hard of a backhand I have. And he said this to his congregation. I'm like, oh, it takes a special person to brag about how hard you can hit your child. Anyway, yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
I've never even thought of explaining my backhand in a form of abuse.
This is why we do what we do, people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this reminds me of inmate number 0645 2017, when he said recently that the accusation that he body slammed his wife cannot be legitimate because he was trained in karate, and if he body slammed her, she'd still be asleep.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, way to try and turn the tide.
Anyway,
it was a good attempt.
I'll ask a question, Aron. What is it you think, in your experience, that causes these like fundamentalist, reactionary, biblical literalists to cling to something that is so obviously false? Like, what do
I
you
wish
think?
I could tell you. It's everybody in my family. What it seems to be is they don't care what the truth is. They're not trying to find out the truth. They're trying to invent the truth. They're trying to create the truth through the power of positive thought. That if they can convince themselves of something and they can believe it hard enough, they can make it come true. And the problem is, it's not just with religion. I found that politics is even less rational than religion is.
What? No.
They're pretty.
You get on my level. Religion only helps with the politics. The politics is nuts as it is.
Look at all the people who are arguing that viruses don't exist.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
And Arn, would you maybe disagree, or I'm sorry, agree with me that it's whether it's religion or politics, not every single person, but both, we could have the conversation that indoctrination plays a huge part in both it, like, you know, for someone like my brother that grew up in a extreme evangelical church like I did, and I had those same views, I had the same political views, and it wasn't until I cracked outside of the indoctrination to realize how fucked up my thinking was, you know. But that played a tool, or I'm sorry, that was the tool that really kept me believing in a young earth creationist, or the, you know, far right Republican conservative you know, mindset. And I think being indoctrinated into that and being trained is a huge part of that as well, both politically and with religion.
There's a thing that science does, which is to test itself, and they want to be dispassionate. So scientists are reprimanded if they use the kind of language, you know, like absolute and truth and proof and all of these sorts of things. That they are trained to be as hesitant and as cautious with everything as they can be, whereas religion is just completely opposite. So science is always testing itself and offering ways that if I'm wrong, then we could test it this way. And if this is the result, then that disproves my position. And it's important that you be able to do that. Like a lot of people here and a lot of people in the chat room, I'm sure, I once held on to some really stupid beliefs. Not the same stupid beliefs as most of the rest of you. I had different stupid beliefs. And the whole thing with me is that I was able to figure out at some point that the truth mattered more than whatever I wanted to believe. And how do I figure out whether what I believe is true or where it might be wrong? And that's the one thing that seems to be different between me and everybody in my family. Everybody in my family, they just choose to believe what they want to. And at some point where me and any number of other people might have been in exactly the same position at one point in our lives, somehow Trump gets on camera and they lose their minds and they start worshiping this guy. I'm like, how the hell do you get an obvious idiot and pathological liar who clearly doesn't understand what the fuck about anything and he's criminal in everything, and he can't get anything right. How do you worship him? Well, suddenly I'm part of this conspiracy.
And they even made a golden idol of him at CPAC.
Oh, yeah.
Literally.
How do you miss this?
Blasphemy!
How do you miss this?
Did you see that beautiful photo of all of the GOP at where the hell it was? There's a golden bowl. There's a bowl made of gold, and all these people have their hands on it and they're praying. Like, if that's not the most sacrilegious image, right?
Yeah. Like, do you read your Bible? Oh yeah, that's right. Of course you don't. Like,
yeah. Speaking of which, Oz, what
Oz?
are you wearing on your head?
A hat backwards.
Tell me that's what that is.
It is what it is.
Not backwards.
it is
Okay,
not.
good.
It is not a turban.
He normally has it forwards, but I'm not sure why it's backwards right now.
Well,
Because he looks very Muslim right now.
Yeah.
You do have a point. I didn't even think about it.
And
There we go.
that hat is white as shit. Like, holy fuck. Like that.
That's a New York Yankees hat, and I cannot respect you for it, but that's fine.
That.
I actually don't like the Yankees. It was just the only all white hat that I could find at the moment. But the reason I normally have it on like this, Aaron, but I just recently updated my studio, and as you can see now, you can't see my eyes, so I have to figure out the lighting.
Well, I understand. And she made a reference to the Yankees. I don't really know anything. I know so little about football that I couldn't even tell you who plays goalie for the Globetrotters.
I follow two sports: tennis and hockey.
What's a sport?
What's a sport?
Checkmate.
I just thought that was like Leave It to Beaver. Good job, sport. I didn't know it was a. But Aaron, I'd like to ask, as far as if we were to sit down and talk to someone who believes in the whole creation process, at what point does it just fall apart? Like it falls off the hinges.
Did you say, will we talk about the creation process?
I'm trying to because I'm trying to remember the verbiage. It's been a few years now since I was a Christian. I can't remember all the verbiage all the time. But I guess the theory, the creation theory, where does that fall apart? At what point does it just fall? The wheels.
Where does it work?
Or what is
about the third syllable of abracadabra.
And that was my point in asking that is. It is that, and people need to realize it is that simple. Like you get a syllable or maybe a word or two into it, and it's already like.
So let me just paraphrase this: the magic invisible man poofed everything out of nothing through an incantation spell. That's creation ex nihilo. But I guess this must have drained him somewhat, because when it came to building man, well, now he no longer has the ability to poof things out of nothing simply by wishing it into being. So he had to conduct a golem spell. And you should look up what a golem spell is.
Made of dirt.
Golem spell is where you make a clay figurine and then you breathe into it the breath of life. And then when that must have taxed him too, because when it came time to create women, well, he somehow created male and female everything else. And here he's got this guy with nipples and testicles because, God was already kind of losing his mind from lack of sleep, I guess. And then decides to take a rib and turn that into a woman. So the genetics are going to be completely all wrong. But then the people who made up the story didn't know anything about genetics. And at some point now, in the 21st century, we're supposed to take any of that seriously, because we will be threatened with we will face the threat of a fate worse than death if we don't.
That is an amazing take. I don't think I've ever heard before.
Well, it's the fate worse than death is always a humorous topic to me, simply because not even to think of like that there's something beyond death, because that's its own problem, but to be a fate worse than death, whereas death is like the ultimate punishment for most society. So
let's talk about something.
Why would you encourage someone to die at a faster rate if you're going to save their soul and they're going to go into a very happy place?
That reminds me, you remember when, what the hell was the name of that evangelical? Oral Roberts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oral Roberts, when he said that Jesus appeared to him as a 900-foot tall being. So there's a 900-foot Jesus standing over Tulsa, Oklahoma. So there's a Jesus that's 3 times bigger than Godzilla. And Jesus tells Oral Roberts that he needs to come up with, I think it was $8 million to build this construction thing he wanted to do. And he gave Oral Roberts 1 month to come up with $8 million, or Jesus was going to kill him.
Good
Right.
riddance.
So a guy who's already 60 plus years old is afraid that his savior is going to murder him if he doesn't get money. And he got the money. Well, he almost got the money. At some point, it was looking like he wasn't going to get the money, and then so Oral Roberts said that Jesus was now bartering down
Oh,
to spare his
convenient.
life if he could just get close to the amount of money.
Oh boy.
So nobody's thinking about the whole purpose of the Jesus belief is for what happens after you die. What does it matter if Jesus kills you?
Apparently,
Is he
like
also
everyone
gonna-
will want to die because of what they're praying for. If they believe in it, then my God, why are they still alive on this planet?
How the hell is anybody this damn stupid?
I don't know.
and how is everybody this stupid? That's the thing that stuns me.
Well, my question is that if Jesus died for you, Oral Roberts, but then is coming to kill you for whatever reason, if he's coming to kill you, I think we now just got a really fucked up conundrum.
So now we have this,
no, there's. What do you mean we just got fucked
so
up?
we have a first century faith healer who suddenly kicks down the door and says, "It's Sunday, bitch. Where's my money?"
Oh my God, is that Otangelo?
And Natty, what I think, what I was trying, we have
Sorry.
a brand new conundrum. Like this is a
Oh
whole
yes,
conundrum.
another one. Yes.
Jesus is dying, coming back to life, and we know this because of the shroud. We know that he came back, and he did it, and now not only is he coming back and kicking ass, he's killing motherfuckers. Now we know this shit is a conundrum.
Yeah, he shows up to your door wearing a tuxedo and a violin case, takes out your knees. Like, I'll be back for the money next week if you don't have it. I'm gonna take out the other knee or something. Gangster shit.
Yeah, and call your brother Benny Hinn. He'll tell you how to get the
This
money.
is a lot of belief that's happening right now in this imaginary world that you guys are playing out.
Well,
Leave
let's
us alone.
talk about something that the believers don't talk much about.
Okay. I'm
Heaven.
listening.
They talk an awful lot about hell,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
but they don't want you to think too much about heaven
No.
because that shit falls apart quick.
Yeah.
So you're going to exist forever
I've made videos about this.
and ever. There's nothing.
No, that sounds like hell. I'm not gonna lie.
There's
Eternal
no
life.
way to make it end. There's no way out of it. Doesn't matter how boring it is. It doesn't matter how repetitive. You can't commit suicide. It's Christopher Hitchens said, at least you can die and leave North Korea.
I love it when he
But
said,
with heaven, it's 11 jillion years squared times a googolplex that you will have to sit there with your lips wrapped around the colon of Jesus.
yeah,
And you better be thinking good thoughts.
That would get old pretty quick.
Wait, I have a question. If per se we go to heaven and then suddenly we have bad thoughts, can we then go to hell from heaven?
No,
Did you ever see that Twilight Zone episode?
Yeah, that's what I'm bringing up.
You've been thinking bad thoughts. You're a bad man. You're a very bad man.
Man.
That's God. You're going to sit in a house with that guy
Yeah.
for
See, that's-
tens of billions of years.
I'm gonna listen to one man talk about himself for ages. Oh wait, I do that anyway.
That's oh damn.
Huh.
You don't have to be my guest co-host, Nat. You know, you just you don't
Oh, let me make this clear. It
you
wasn't
don't gotta
Ricky.
be.
That wasn't
No,
Ricky.
it's fine. It's fine. The damage is done. Damage is done.
No, that's just being a woman in America. That's
Hey
for,
Oz, I need a new co-host. How do you feel about?
Oz, don't do it.
Aaron, speaking of heaven, and they talk about hell way more than they do heaven. I was a Christian for 30 plus years, and I could probably count on how many hands. Oh Jesus, I can count on one hand how many times there was a sermon preached about heaven, but hell was mentioned every Sunday. You know, and
my grandmother told me that everybody gets a mansion, and the streets are made of gold.
Yeah.
And this is a woman who's a direct ancestor of mine, And this is the limitation of her cognizance.
Yeah.
And I at what, 10, something like that, am seeing huge problems with that. Why does everybody have a mansion? Why do we have streets? Do we need to protect ourselves from the elements in heaven?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like nobody gives a thought to this. Nobody analyzes any of it. Why do we still have bodies? Why is it that you're still married to the person you were married to in life? You're still married to them in the afterlife. And my grandmother believed in that so much that she decided she hated my grandpa, and she realized when she was dying that she had to get a divorce before she was dead because there was no way to divorce him afterward.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait. Were your grandparents Mormon as well?
Yeah.
Ah, gotcha. So were they still Mormon, really, if they got a divorce?
You surely you don't expect consistency.
I'm just wondering, because I can tell you right now, that kicker I was telling you about earlier, my mom is now married to a Mormon. Now, granted, I have been working for years now to destabilize his belief, and I think it's getting to him at this point. There are some questions that are popping up. I think now he is only Mormon because he raised all his kids to be Mormon, and he feels the need to continue to show that front of him. But it is not there anymore. Let me tell you what. He doesn't go to church.
When I still
My mom is not Mormon. Yeah, there's nothing that goes along with it. So
I'm glad that when I still had spiritual beliefs, that I realized how unfounded they were. Because when I was a little kid, 7 or 8 years old, I asked my mom which is the true religion, and she says, "Well, ours is, of course." And I realized as soon as she said that, well, of course she would say that. How stupid am I to ask somebody? If I go ask the Catholic across the street, they're going to tell me their religion is the one true one. That's just what everybody's going to do, right? So you don't really ever know. So then, when I still believed that life was animated by a vital spirit, for example, when I still had that kind of belief, when I still thought that there were supernatural things, my daughter, then 7 years old, asked me which is the true religion. And I said, none of them. They're all wrong, including me. And I had to mention that, including me, I'm wrong too.
Oh, and Tangelo's back.
Yeah,
well, he's wrong as well. He just can't admit it. And then my daughter says, I don't like that answer. And I said, well, that's the one you're going to get. And as it happened, it turned out that I was wrong.
Yeah. Aron, when you brought that up, it was disgusting to hear how many times my mom's funeral was yesterday afternoon, and
I'm sorry.
Thank you. It was my family. I come from the evangelical, batshit crazy, slinging oil, speaking in tongues. That's where I come from, and it really was disgusting to hear how many times yesterday with people speaking. And my mom, you did have a wide reach, in that community. And how many times, oh, I see Sherry right now. She's up in heaven in her mansion playing her piano. She was a praise and worship pastor for 20 plus years. She's up there playing her piano. And I'm just sitting there shaking my head. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Can we just celebrate my mom's life? What do you get? You guys are talking about this fantasy land somewhere that you see my mom there. I just want to celebrate my mom and be done with this service. Like I want to close the chapter. This has been hard enough. I don't want to hear you now drum up make believe. I want closure. So that's why there's so many dangerous elements even to this afterlife and a promise, even the promise of heaven that people hold on to, not just for themselves but their family members, that they have this false sense of hope that, well, it's okay. I don't actually have to deal with the mourning, or anything like that, because I'm going to see him again here in a little bit.
It's just an excuse not to go through anything in life. Stay numb, pretend.
When I die and I have a wake, then I expect there to be a poster on the wall that if anybody says that, that I know better now, or that I know God exists now, or anybody that says something like that goes to hell.
You're gonna just I'm there now, bitches. I have his ear.
Yeah. My old email address. I had an email address once that was ILCUNL.
Wait,
Lovely. That's great. I might have to kidnap that at some point in time if I ever have to create a mail assistant to answer questions for me.
But going back to what we were saying about heaven, that's something I get asked pretty frequently is how do you cope with the idea that you're just going to cease to exist? Like, I can't deal with that. And I'm like, well, consider the alternative. You're going to be alive for trillions upon trillions upon trillions upon trillions upon trillions of years. Like, even in paradise, that's going to get old after a while. Hello,
Yeah.
Cat butts.
Cat butts in my face. That's Gurr. Say hi, Gurr.
Gurr looks very much like my Persephone.
Persephone.
Is that the golden retriever that's been jumping on the back?
No, where is he right now? No, that is my Great Pyrenees.
Oh, Great Pyrenees. I was like, he's very light in color.
Yeah, named Falcor.
See, earlier I saw that, and my first reaction was like, Aron, look out, there's a white supremacist behind you. Like, it just looked like this pointed, like, hood. I was like, they found you. Go. Run!
I didn't know if you could see the dog back there.
Aron is a treasure, and if they find him, so help me God, I will throw fists. I will throw things. Yeah.
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. Otangelo just said, look at the trees. He did it. He went to the bottom of the barrel.
Well,
he's kind of always been there. It's just that's what he can reach.
Yeah.
That's what he can reach.
I'm out of the loop on this. What do you mean look at the trees?
They're talking about evidence, and he's
because every logical fallacy has been used as an argument for God, and every argument for God is a logical fallacy.
Yeah.
The God of the gaps is a combination of the question-begging fallacy combined with the arguments from ignorance and incredulity.
Okay.
But the question-begging fallacy is ubiquitous throughout all of religion. It's the circular assumptions of simply assuming your conclusion that you believe there's a God because you believe there's a God. You believe the Bible is true because the Bible says it's true, and you know it's true because the Bible says so. That's the endless loop of stupid that these believers are lost.
I think my favorite, if he's saying look at trees, and if that is to believe in like the origin of trees, I would like to add that sharks have been around for millions of years beyond the time of trees.
Not when you deny reality.
I'm going to deny them.
I've actually heard people.
They're no longer a part of my reality.
People have told me to my face that fossils were buried by Satan.
Oh, I'm sure they have. No, I was at the Grand Canyon last month, and I was told to my face that I was wrong.
I just heard that God put those there to test our faith.
Right. Yeah. Those are things, right?
That's what I was always told.
The guy who knows everything needs to test whether you believe or not.
Yeah.
And God also knows what would cause me to believe. Like having some truth to it might cause me to consider that the rest of it might be true. But if you got no truth at all, and all you have is an endless parade of liars who are all collectively idiots, and none of whom has any idea what they're talking about, and we can prove that they're absolutely wrong about absolutely everything 100% of the time for such a long time, and yet still think that theirs is the absolute truth, that's not going to convince me.
No.
Oh, look, yet another bearded weirdo who has no idea what he's talking about, threatening me with hell.
I mean, yeah.
You're not the first. You're not the first, and you certainly won't be the last.
That's pretty much where my mind was going. Yeah. It's like, well, it's not like I haven't heard this before.
Yeah, how many wives do I get in this religion?
Oh, God. Oh, no, this is the fun part, is who do I get to belong to? Let's find out.
I'll follow. I will commit to the first religion that promises me 0 wives.
Have you noticed that there's not one that allows a woman to have multiple husbands or any position of superiority at all? Not even the ones that have goddesses will allow this.
No, because
at most you can find some antiquated faith that allows a woman to be a complete slut.
That's fair. Hedonism is great. But I will say that genetically there is somewhat of an understanding as to why that is. I'm not going to say the religion has any merit. That's not what I'm saying. I'm throwing that out the window. But logically, if you have one woman with multiple men, it is a pleasure base versus one man with multiple women, which is then a population replenishment. So genetically speaking and biologically speaking, it makes sense. That doesn't mean it's right, but
that was my argument when I was a teenager. You know, hey, one man, 12 women, I can keep almost all of them pregnant.
Yeah.
Yep.
Keep them pregnant and standing in the kitchen, right? That is a Mormon phrase. That is a Mormon fucking phrase. Do not.
And it's important to realize that, like, back, like, in antiquity, a woman had to get pregnant 6 times in order to maintain the population, because there was no modern medicine.
No. They didn't have to get pregnant 6 times. They had to
have 6,
and had 6 living heirs.
Right.
Because most of them didn't.
13, 15 times.
So
most
like
pregnancies end in miscarriage, and most births were most kids were dead before they reached puberty.
Bingo.
And sometimes the death rate of infants was so high that they didn't bother naming children until they were 2 years old.
There are multiple cultures that still do this to this day that are considered, and I'm going to use a term that anthropologists don't like, which is like a I'm going to use the term native, but really it is a unique civilization that we haven't weaseled our way into yet, which is lovely.
Colonized.
Yeah, but there are populations where you get to choose your name by the time you're 6, and I think there's another one where you get to choose when you're like 10 or 11, because you've made it past the time of growing, like the time which you may have died. So
Can we go back to that, because I hate my first name.
Well, that was never a white person's culture.
Yeah,
I did the same thing. I was named after my dad.
Yeah, I was named after my dad. I don't like it.
I was named after Christmas.
And at some point I was asked, when am I going to live up to my father's name?
Why would you want to?
That's what snapped for me. I said, you know what? I'm not. I'll have my own name. And all due respect to him, I'm not him.
I was going to say, why do you want to live up to someone else's name? I don't understand that.
Like, why can't I make my own name for myself?
Yeah.
Well, even then, one of the things that I've had Christians come up to me and ask is, why do you fight so hard to be known? And I'm like, I don't fight hard to be known. I fight hard to make sure that what I'm learning is shared. That's what I want to know. And on one of our podcasts a few weeks back, there was a gentleman that was just like, I'm not going to remember who you are. And I'm like, you don't have to remember who I am. And they were like, but when you die, you're not going to be remembered. I will. And I was like, why would you be remembered? And he said, because I'm Christian, I will live on. And I was like, well, that doesn't mean people are going to remember you. That simply means that you think you're going to keep living, even though your body's going to die and worms are going to eat it. And you know what? Good for them.
And your consciousness and your memories and your loves and aspirations and everything that was once you will be reduced to a few dozen pounds of ape meat going bad.
Yeah. And, ape meat, when it goes bad, it goes rancid. I'm just saying. That was something that Indiana Jones did get right, is eating the brains of monkeys was not a very tasty thing. It's pretty gross.
I'm hoping to be composted.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah,
I want a tree planted on top of me.
Like, normalize that shit. Why can we normalize that, please?
Put me in a burlap sack, plant a tree on top of me, and I'd be happy as a clam.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter, because I won't actually be happy, because I wouldn't know.
You can be happy now.
I'd be happy now if someone told me that they were going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the way that Neil deGrasse Tyson describes that. It's beautiful. He's like, I want my energy to return so that it can feast off of me the way I feasted off of it while I was alive. Like, it's like, I forget how he said it. It's just beautiful. Like,
I think it would be great if I could see a Christian tell them what's going to happen when they die. And what happens is, or who was it that said, Dane Cook said a quote that was, a Christian
Oh.
said, God bless you. And he said, well, I'm an atheist. And they're like, okay, well, what happens when you die? And he's like, well, I'll be planted next to a tree. The tree will bloom. It will grow. It'll be cut down someday, turned into paper, and then the Bible will be printed on it. And I'm just like, yes, that's what happens when you die.
Yeah, I told
Perpetuation of belief.
Yeah, injustice continues.
Yes.
I told my wife and Aunt Kathy and my cousins, the four of us out of our entire family that don't believe, when all the crazy, like craziness was done yesterday, I said, listen, I don't give a fuck what you do with my body. Burn it, throw it in a heap, throw it under a tree, do whatever.
Bring out your dead.
Just make sure that the service to celebrate my life is actually a celebration. I expect whiskey, bourbon, cigars, cigarettes, whatever it is, like fucking party and do it the way Oz would have did it.
Irish wakes all the way.
Yeah, have fun, kick back, and be like, you know what? Sometimes he was an asshole, but he was a cool motherfucker. Like, just talk about that shit, or don't talk about me at all. I don't care. Just get fucked up, but don't do that shit. Don't do that shit.
And if the priest or pastor or whatever tries to give an altar call during that fucking thing, $1,000 goes to whoever punches that motherfucker in the face.
Okay.
I'm
So this is hitting a little close to home. This is hitting a little close to home simply because of a conversation that happened with Oz yesterday. So
since the conversation naturally went there, I'll keep it short. Because of the events because I'm the atheist and I'm the black sheep, I was essentially eliminated from everything as far as planning. I didn't even know when the funeral date, location, anything was until I saw it on Facebook. Like they eliminated me from everything. And then in the service, and I told a few family members, like, do all the Jesus shit you want, whatever. I can sit through it. I don't believe in it, but I can sit through it. But I went through years of therapy to remove the fear and threat of hell out of my brain, to rewire my brain to not have to worry about that. I will be goddamned if I sit in my own mother's funeral and have to be subjected to that bullshit again. I won't do it. And the pastor that was doing the service is a pastor that I attended his church, and that's all the Bible classes I took, theology classes I took were all taught by this guy. I know his mannerisms, I know his verbiage. And it got to a certain point, and he said, well, today I have my Bible. And I already knew what time it was. He was getting ready to go to the altar call, and I left. And then all my friends were texting me, and they're like, if you're going to go, now's when you go, and I was like, no, I'm already gone. Like that was the cue. I already knew to leave, and literally went into a funeral that if you don't know Jesus, you will suffer a certain hell and an eternal separation from God. But if you want to spend eternity in heaven with God, and here's the disgusting part of the sales pitch, and see Sherry again, fuck you, then you're going to make this decision, right? And after that, I'm glad I left, but it was like, what? You did this at a fucking funeral?
Yeah.
Asshole.
No manipulation, right?
Yeah, I had a cousin that I was very close to, I grew up with. She was gunned down in her own home, and her wife or girlfriend as well, during a drug deal that went bad in front of their 9-year-old daughter. Like, it was her biological daughter. And she went and hid under the bed, called the police, like the whole story. And the guy who killed them wanted to kill my niece, or not my niece, but her daughter, but couldn't do it. So he called somebody that he thought would be able to, and he came over and he couldn't do it either. And by then the police showed up. So I went to the funeral, and of course the whole family were there, pissed as hell. We want to fillet this guy alive, and the pastor does the whole altar call thing, like, if anyone wants to visit me after the funeral, you can accept Jesus in your heart. And I'm like, these two people were murdered in front of their daughter over a drug deal that went wrong, and you're doing an altar call right now? Like, I've never been more angry in my life. I don't think. Like, yeah, so that shit needs to chill.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Sorry, didn't mean to get too dark, but
Yeah,
Well, it is
that's
a rough
the reality. That's the
It, it's,
I'm
a,
reality.
it's
hoping-
a rough topic, and poor Oz is going through it right now. So it's personal, and that's the roughest
Yeah.
thing I think about this.
Well,
I'm hoping that when my time comes, that people understand that I had a pretty good life most of the time. I was almost always happy, and that's probably just because I have a generally positive outlook on things. And I always thought that even if things were bad and I had nothing that I could say that was positive, at least I allowed myself to be impressed by the situation. And for the most part, things have been good. I had it better than most. I have certainly had it better than I deserved, and so I'm very happy with the way that life has turned out for me.
and that's awesome. Like Aaron, last week I had Neil on the 604 Atheists Who Don't Know. And he was talking. He talked about you a little bit. He was like, if you ever go to Texas with Aaron, like he will show you the best time of your life. He knows where all the good play. He knows where the best beer is, and like that's his impression of you. That's which. So I think you're having that effect on people.
I will say that from that conversation with Neil, he was just like, "So how often do you go down to Texas?" Well, my office is technically in Austin, so I go down there frequently enough. And he was just like, well, you'll have to hit up Aaron. And I was like, Aaron, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to. I didn't think I'd be friends with said person. I was like, I was excited enough to meet you. I didn't realize that he was like offering you as like a personalized tour guide, and I was like, oh well. Let me know only if he's okay with it.
Yeah, let me know if you're in Dallas, because we do know some good places.
That sounds perfect.
I was born there, but I got out as soon as I could. I was like 3, and I went to Germany, so it makes sense.
I was born in a tiny little town in the desert in Arizona, and moved within 2 weeks of the time I was born, and spent the next 2 years on a raft in Alaska.
That sounds like an interesting story.
I loved Alaska. So
what?
Whereabouts in Alaska? Where were you?
Farragut Bay, 14 miles north of Petersburg. Except that we were kind of. My dad ran a logging company at the time, and so we lived on a raft. It was 2 houses on a raft, and then there would be this tugboat that would pull the raft into the next bay. Once we were done cutting all the trees down in this bay, then we'd move to the next one. And you had to be on a raft because there's no way to build. You couldn't build permanent structures because the bears would come tear it down.
Yep.
So there was a guy that had a log cabin that he built that he was really happy with, and then he's frying up bacon, and a bear came through his wall.
Yeah, because they don't understand doors. Do you expect a bear to knock? I'm sorry. I understand where people would be like astonished, like, oh my god, it came through your wall. It's like, yeah, fucking came through the wall. Because where else is it going to come in? Because the bear's going to invite himself, whether or not you like it. So,
you're frying bacon.
You're frying bacon. Moose is going to do the same thing. You try to build something in the moose's territory, it's going to come down, knock it down, and stare at you, and like do its little huff where it goes. Stares you down.
I was only like 2 years old when we left, and I have short, fleeting memories. One of them being I was playing in a washing machine, one of those old washing machines that had a hand crank that you would run closer. So yeah. I'm sitting in one of those barrel type, and this was my airplane. I can remember that this was my World War I fighter plane.
You had a Snoopy moment.
At a Snoopy moment.
Oh.
And another fleeting moment.
I get it.
Yeah, they built a little fence. They built a little fence around the raft so that I wouldn't just walk off the edge. But when my dad shows up with supplies, he bought me the stupidest thing you could ever buy for a kid that lives on a raft. He gave me a toy boat.
All right, so you're going to want to lean over and put the boat in the water.
So he hands me this, and then the gate is still open while he's loading the groceries into the house. So, of course, I go down to the edge to try to put my boat in the water. And when I put my boat in the water, I found out he gave me a boat that didn't float.
Oh.
Oof. Oh, no.
So I reached in to grab it, and all I can remember after that was green bubbles.
Oh,
no. And my dad, of course, just happened to be there at the moment because he's like loading groceries in the house and pulled me out of the water. But those are the two memories I have from living on that raft.
Oh gosh, I mean, it's still a story. That's amazing.
I was
you see
potty
God?
trained. I was potty trained on a rain barrel that had a toilet seat mounted onto it, and the rain barrel was inserted into a hole that was cut in the floor, and it would cut down to the rib so that the barrel would come down to in the hole into the rib. And so you look into the toilet, you could see fish, and some of them were quite large.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially in the winter, the bigger ones would come and hang out.
It's hard to sit on that toilet when you see these big fish and you're dangling your worm there as you're sitting there on the toilet.
I wouldn't know that problem.
My worm's not very big during the winter.
During the winter?
Yes. It's this whole thermodynamics thing. We don't really get into it.
Is it thermodynamics? I don't think that's what you're thinking about.
Hold on. You just like penis-sized to thermodynamics.
Yeah, cold, the atoms like they come closer together so they can be warm. So I'm
right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's it.
Well, I mean, if we really want to get into vibrational energy,
it sounds like Tangelo type logic. You're saying, "Oh, my penis needs proteins to make it do these things."
Nat, are you echoing again?
I might be. I don't mean to be. If I am, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Better. Yeah. Oh my God!
That's such a big pupper.
That is a big fluffy pupper.
He's a floof.
He's a pretty floof.
Yeah, he has a great smile. He's very loving and super loyal, which is unfortunate because I can't move my chair. It's got wheels, and he's always under the wheels.
Oh.
Yeah, no, my dog's similar. She'll just let me hit her, and then she'll just wander away.
I rolled the chair over his ear one time. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna get back into creationism. We kind of took like a serious tangent there.
But by the way, I didn't mean to say thermodynamics. Fuck.
No, thermodynamics.
I didn't mean to say that either because those weren't even words. I meant to say thermal expansion, which I know is still not really applicable, but it was a joke. It didn't land. Let's move on. Never mind.
You're the one that brought it up again, man.
I used the wrong term. I had to correct myself.
Ah, yes. Okay.
So I went to the bedroom, and all I was thinking is thermodynamics.
Warm thoughts.
I mean, Oz, you were talking about you got me all hot and bothered the other day talking about equations.
Oh shit! That's what. Oh, there's got to be a term for that.
Oh, sapiosexual, someone that enjoys intelligence.
No.
Oh, yeah, that explains my fascination with Carl Sagan.
Yes.
I used to tell this joke that I'm not really gay, but I would be willing to have Carl Sagan's two-headed love child.
That's freaking adorable.
I mean, that explains my Bart Ehrman body pillow.
We have a super chat.
Jesus Christ.
Don't tell him I said that joke when we have him on the show.
I'm definitely telling him.
That's the funniest thing I've heard all day. Bart Ehrman body pillow. Does it look like
cuddles him at night?
Does it look like the wrestling? Does it look like the wrestling buddies back in the day?
No, it's one solid piece. It's life size.
Oh.
There's a hole in the middle for some reason. I don't really know what for it, but it's there.
Wait, in the middle or?
It's a little bit lower than the middle. We don't need to go into it.
Okay, but yeah, super chat.
All right, super chat. Oh wait, is that who I think it is?
Yeah,
Chico,
what up?
Thought I might point this out.
He sent me $5 for my tooth fund. Yep. Yeah, I broke my tooth one day during a live stream. Somebody asked me to do a backflip, which normally I can do no problem. I've been a gymnast, and for some reason I fucked up this one time, and I fucked up live in front of like 40 or 50 people, and I broke my tooth. And my insurance does not cover it. So to get it fixed, I'm going to have to pay for it out of pocket. I'm going to be going and submitting that paperwork tomorrow. So hopefully I'll be able to pay for it and get that fixed.
I have offered you many different species of teeth. to replace it. I'm just saying, you could have had a shark's tooth.
Yeah,
Yeah. I get all my dental work done in Cancun.
Oh, that's a good
Just
place
for
to
an
be.
excuse to go to Cancun.
I love that excuse. Now I feel like I need to go get a cleaning done in Cancun.
Well, I would go for more major stuff than that.
Probably.
Yeah. My wife
a lot
talked
of
me into it.
major stuff that needs done.
I had a hard time believing that I can go to Mexico, do all the stuff on the Mexican Riviera, go to Chichen Itza, go to all of that, go snorkeling with sea turtles, and do all of that kind of stuff. And then after you figure in all of the expense for the flight and the hotel or the apartment that we rented, and you do all of that touristy crap, and figure in the dentist, it still ended up being a third of what it would have cost if I just stayed here and gone to the strip mall dentist down the street.
It's nuts. Privatized healthcare is the worst. The worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I recommend, go snorkel with sea turtles.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
I got to swim through a sunken ship with barracuda.
That's
Really?
fun.
Like the fish, not the car, right?
Yeah.
There were like little cars driving. Okay, I'm just making sure. Just make sure. I had to.
I'm old enough to remember the barracuda.
I'm not old enough to know the barracuda personally.
I used
I
to
do know of it. I enjoy cars.
I used to live in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where they have the Carlisle car show, which is fucking massive, and people come from all over the country. And they have like a huge section that's just barracudas, and they're gorgeous.
I was working some little store night shift, and I remember this incredible rumble as the entire store was shaking with this beautiful sound outside, and I had to know what was this awesome machine that had just pulled up, and it was a 440 with a 6-pack, and I was amazed. It was like a 1971 Barracuda, which is like I think $250,000 now.
Yeah.
And the guy's driving this. I'm like, how do you afford to drive this thing? And he said, well, this is the beauty of it. He's on a company credit card. He works for an oil company. They pay him to go to all these places. And since they're paying his gas, then he's driving this.
Car. Yep. There is always a loophole. That's true.
A 440 with a 6-pack. Can you imagine how shitty the mileage is on that?
Oh God, it's got to be like what, 5, 6? Maybe.
Pretty fair. Yeah.
Down a hill, it might get 7.
I had a friend whose car got 3. Yeah, he was on a Ram Air 400 with a 2-speed Powerglide racing transmission. He was on a Pontiac GTO, 3 miles a gallon.
Is this friend of yours? Is he a drag racer?
He was, yeah.
No, okay, that makes sense then. That makes sense. You don't see that type of engine on any car, even if you do street racing or are fans.
Well, I was surprised when Dodge Viper came out. They came out with a V10, and that's also
my favorite car.
That
I
also
love
was
Vipers.
3.5 miles a gallon city.
Yeah, sounds about right. Sounds about right. Still my favorite car. Not politically correct. Still love it. So I wanted to ask, actually. So getting back on topic, I suppose. I wanted to ask if
you got a super chat.
We do have a super chat. Let's
for a box of chiclets. I will buy a box of chiclets
for your tooth. Because you know, and like when you were a kid and someone would like fake punch you and you'd spit out a chiclet, it's like, oh, my tooth fell out.
No, what?
No, you don't.
No,
you didn't know about this?
No, the school I grew up in.
I know. Aaron knows what I'm talking about.
There was not a fake punch, and there was not chiclet.
Yeah,
I've never
heard of that.
It was a real punch and real teeth.
Yeah, gangster shit.
Okay,
yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, I grew up in the hood, motherfucker. This shit was real.
Anyway,
why were we offered a box of chiclets? Well, I don't get the joke.
It's a continuation of his tooth.
Because,
okay.
You were talking about my tooth.
Yeah, his broken tooth, and they're like, well, instead of paying for an actual tooth, we'll just get you a chiclet.
Okay.
It's going to get fixed
Replaceable.
real soon, guys. I
Daily.
appreciate y'all so worry.
Yeah, that reminds me of a country song about fighting. You know, my teeth rolled out like chiclets in a street in San Antonio.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's it.
I think that's what's happening here.
Okay.
Anyway,
no.
Matt, what questions do you have?
My question, first off, I wanted to talk about something that I think is really cool that we haven't brought up yet. So Aron is the founder and creator for the Phylogeny Explorer project, which maps out the entire tree of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just talking with the people with the engineers on that today.
Oh.
Because
Really?
we were frustrated that it's taking so long. They did this lofty idea where they could integrate millions of species from the EOL page, but they had like 1.6 million species, and they're all extant species. They don't have any fossil species. Everything's alive now. Yeah. And we were getting most of our data had been integrated from FossilWorks, which is a peer-reviewed, fossiliferous location. And so we were trying to combine these, and this was this lofty plan where the guy originally described it like a year and a half ago, that we could just code it in, and then we can push a button and bring in all of these millions of species. And I thought,
it's not going to be that easy.
That sounds like it would be a lot harder than what you're explaining. And so it's a year and a half later, and they're still trying to work out the bugs from having done that.
That's what I was wondering is how it was going.
Yeah.
Because that was where that question was going. I'm really glad you kind of already answered it.
We'd only entered, I think, manually. It was a team of volunteers, and we had manually entered somewhere in the neighborhood of about 80,000 species, 80,000 species manually. But so the idea of bringing in 1.6 million with a push of a button.
It was a beautiful idea, but I mean, you can't always use it accurately too. It's even if it could do it, so you don't know exactly which families some of those would fall under if you're using specifically physical traits versus.
And the ultimate goal of this site is to be peer reviewed. So we want to be the biggest and most detailed cladogram or dendrogram there is, period.
I would love to look in depth on that program sometime, because that project looks amazing.
There are a number of features we want to get integrated to make it useful as a learning tool, and it will be once we get past this. But once we get all the species actually set where they're supposed to be, which ended up being a lot of manual correction, which I'm kind of surprised.
Welcome to phylogeny.
It looked like it was going to be that anyway.
And there's always updates being made. I mean, constantly. Yeah. Just bird species is one of the biggest pain in my asses I've ever experienced. And then if you ever talk about, I'm assuming you've read Beak of the Finch before, or no? Well, that just it's a modern day interpretation of the study of the Galapagos finches that Darwin observed, and it discusses the varying traits of how certain families or certain what we would think of same species would eventually change form simply because they could breed and reproduce with others. Just constantly adapting and evolving and readapting and re-evolving, and you're finding, like, after you've tagged them all, you're finding that there's particular species that would become the same as another, even though initially it wasn't. And on these islands, it's just like this constant adaptation makes it damn near impossible to put a phylogeny tree together, because they end up connecting with each other.
I think it was originally 14 Darwinian finches, and now it's 18.
Yeah, but I mean, they jump. It's so unusual, but they do jump from one tree to another or one branch to another, I should say, within their genetic species. And so they're supposed to be like mules. They shouldn't be able to reproduce and carry children, but they are. And
see, there are certain studies that, like, maybe you're interested in geography. You want to know where everything is. I am a little mystified that there are people living in my state who do not know what state or country lies to the west, to the south, to the east, to the north. They have no idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes you could even show it to them on a map.
Yeah.
And there's just some correlation they don't get. I've met people that can only see things in terms of like road marks on the road. They can't look down at a map and place themselves on it or make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
But
and then I also recognize that people want to know where things are chronologically. They understand which was invented first, the television or the motor car.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I mean, they realize when different events in history happened, and they have a good perspective on that. But I know a lot of other people just have no idea. Like when Donald Trump said that in the Revolutionary War of 1776, they seized all the airports.
Yeah. Oh.
They're just people who just have no damn clue.
Wow.
But my fascination is knowing where we are phylogenetically, where we are as far as what clades, what things are more closely related to what other things than other things.
It's a really cool topic. I will openly admit to that. It's a fascinating topic.
Well, thank you. It translates to me like the Sesame Street game of one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
Take three animals, and the creationists will always say, we'll always only put up two. And they'll say, well, you can tell the difference between these two.
No.
Yeah, you can tell the difference between any two. But if you put up three, then two of them are going to be closer than the third one. One of these things is not like the others.
Mm-hmm.
And then all taxonomy works like that. And you can trade them out as much as you want to, and you just keep playing the game forever. And it objectively establishes this phylogenetic tree that they want to pretend doesn't exist. They want to pretend so hard.
Oh yeah,
that it isn't real.
They really do. But,
and I don't understand what the fascination is. I want to know, like the Buddhist concept of becoming one with everything. I am. I know where I am in the tree of life. But these other people want to have this entirely fantasy image of this magic imaginary friend that they think that they have, and I just don't get that.
Going back to what you're saying, Aron, about conservatives not being able to recognize like other countries on the map. This is just where my mind went to. I went to Macedonia on a mission with the army as part of their effort to join the NATO, the National Air Defense Treaty Organization. In order to do that, they had to prove that they could host the U.S. Army within like a week's notice. And anyway, it was this whole thing. And it was there I met with a lot of locals, and they were like, "We are surrounded by enemies." And I was like, "Really?" They're like, "Yeah, like you in the U.S., you have Canada and you have Mexico. That's it. It's like we are surrounded."
Yeah.
By people who are constantly trying to take away chunks of our land, and they have a lot of success. It's like, so us trying to join NATO is an effort for us to be able to protect the land that we have. And I was like, that is an interesting perspective I've never thought about before, because we don't have that perspective here. We don't have to deal with, we're landlocked, with the exception, of course, Canada and Mexico. But like, they don't have oceans around them. They have other countries that don't like them and they want their land. So they have these continual like wars that they're always engaged in. They're always trying to fight for their own land. We don't understand that here. So that was an interesting perspective.
Yeah, welcome to the concept of worldview. It's
Weltanschauung. Well, fuck, what's the German word? Weltanschauung. For worldview.
I have it written somewhere.
It's something like that.
I don't remember German. This is where language.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to bring up your weak point.
Weltanschauung? No, that's not right.
That
I don't know.
Sounded racist somehow.
It did. It really did.
Anyway,
it really did. Forget I said that. Wilton. I think I was looking at Wiener Schnitzel's thing, and I was like, oh, maybe it sounds like that.
Wiener Schnitzel? Wiener? We went there.
Wiener Schnitzel. Yeah.
That's what we call it.
We went to Wieners and Schnitzels.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants the Wieners and Schnitzels, don't they? Even the fish, apparently. No, so, okay, we have a few people on here that are wanting us to jump back to creationism, so let's go ahead and talk about it.
We've gone off.
What is one of the craziest theories you have heard someone use to describe biblically if creationism isn't real, but they are Christian?
That's the one.
That's it.
Thank you. That's the one.
Weltanschauung.
That would require somebody to be able to think hypothetically.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and they really can't. I mean, when I bring up a hypothesis, I say, okay, so if what you're saying is true, then this would be true. So you think I'm right? No, I don't think you're right. I said, if what you said is right, well then, but anytime I bring up any kind of a hypothetical scenario, if this, then that, they think, so you believe that? No, I don't. This is just the example. And for whatever reason, the creationists don't seem to be capable of thinking hypothetically. They certainly can't question their own position.
That's fair. So
when they're always challenging me to provide proof of my position, they're always challenging me to prove their position.
If they can't prove it, then...
Well, no, they're challenging me to prove that life was created out of nothing. Like, you're the one that believes that, not me.
Yeah, that's
true. So when you come across a Christian that isn't a creationist, what do you think about their stance? Like, how are they able to believe...
reconcile.
Yeah, how are they able to reconcile that? Because wouldn't that be nitpicking their own religion into believing a little bit of science, but not all?
It's a whole different collection of arguments.
Yeah.
And the one that gets me the most is creationism, because creationism is such a form of religious extremism that requires reality denial. And they make claims that we can prove to be false unambiguously. So that makes it a huge advantage to argue against creationists. If you prove anything wrong to a creationist, they're not a creationist anymore. They're not even Christian. They're not a theist anymore. They go right to atheist. One step.
Which are apparently the same as Satanists to them, but that's a whole other topic.
But they do. It's an all or nothing perspective.
Yes.
So if you can show them anything wrong, boom, they're completely unbelievers. Now, when I'm talking to somebody who understands science, I mean, there's a whole lot of people who are Christian and understand science and accept evolution. So we have a whole different selection of arguments. And for the most part, those people aren't the threat to make it worth the conversation, because they're not the ones that are openly lying to children in science class or history class. Because creationism doesn't just lie about science. It lies about everything.
Yeah.
So science, sex, social studies, religion, I mean, just school in general is all fucked up when creationists get a hold of it. There's a whole wrong system of morals and everything with religious extremists. And it doesn't matter if they're Christian or they're Muslim or what have you. And whereas you get with moderate Christians, okay, so they just want to go play their game of pretend, and they're not really going to bother the rest of us so much.
That's fair.
They don't really care.
And Aron, on a couple of your videos, you kind of followed up on that with a couple of statements, which I completely agree with, especially those that have the fundamental, belief or look at the Bible that it is inherently true. It's God breathed, God spoken. As soon as we know that one part just doesn't make sense scientifically, or whatever, we can demonstrate that it's not true, then what happens to the rest of the book? If one part is shown to be not true, what happens to the rest of the book?
Yeah. And we always talk about Genesis, and they've got completely concreted their minds on anything about Genesis, about hearing any kind of criticism of that. But let's say 2 Peter 3:5. It says that God made the earth out of water and from water. So if the Bible's absolutely literal, and they cave almost immediately on any given point where the Bible is literal except when it's not. It's literal except when it's metaphorical. And what is metaphorical today will be literal again tomorrow, or it'll be literal again depending on who they're talking to. Just as long as they never have to admit that, yeah, I got that wrong, I need to change it and stop saying that. That'll never happen.
No.
They're going to continue to repeat that mistake because they know it's wrong and they don't care. They want to believe what they want to believe. Several times in my life, I've had these people admit to me in one way or another that these may be what the facts are, but I prefer to believe this. Or I believe in Jesus because I like to, not because I think it's true. Or if I had proof that Christianity was false, I hope that my faith is strong enough that to keep believing even when my eyes tell me otherwise. Things of that nature. It's make-believe. It's literally pretend.
Yeah.
It's not a competing scientific theory. They're not two sides of the same coin. This is literally fact versus fiction. fact versus fantasy, if you like. They are pretending. And sometimes they will admit that they're pretending.
And there's a person, and Ricky, I'll let you go. I'm sorry, but
you got
my ADHD brain will forget this if I don't say it. You know, one of the things lately on our channel that I've been talking about is the scripture that says, "Walk by faith and not by sight." You know, and that you should, you know, however they mean that. So I've asked several Christians now. So if I tell you to, and please. Christians, don't actually do this. Just mentally walk through it and ask yourself if you'd actually do it. I want you to blindfold yourself and start on the one side of a highway. And I want you to walk across the highway, and I want you to do it by faith. Don't worry about sight. Don't worry about if there's a semi, a van, a car, a tank, what the fuck ever. Don't worry about it, because you're walking by faith and not by sight. And there's been several times I saw you, Aron, with a shirt on and said, I'm walking by sight and not by faith. And I wish more people would grasp that and get a hold of that, because life just makes a lot more sense. And it's and the shit like what I just went through this last week, 2 weeks with my mom and the rest of my crazy Christian family, like everything made a lot more sense using just science, medicine, logic, reason, and common sense, rather than grasping onto this faith thing. And I'll end that with, you know, my moniker has become on our channel and Discord and everything, faith is bullshit. Faith is bullshit. It's not reliable. It's not a reliable vehicle. It's not a reliable pathway to true things. And I actually hate it for people. It breaks my heart that they invest so much of their life into that word.
One of the things that people have done, the sincere believers, is that they force themselves into a situation where the belief has to be true. And they'll commit everything that they have, all of their resources. In one case, for example, in 2011, Harold Camping, evangelical radio host, said that the world was going to end on May 21st. And a whole bunch of people responded to that in a really bad way. One of them slit the throats of her 3 daughters in order to protect them from Satan. Mm-hmm. But another thing about it is that when you kill your own kids like that, you are committing yourself to that belief wholeheartedly, so that the belief has to be true, or else you've completely fucked up. And so they want to convince themselves. They want to be so desperately connected to that belief that they absolutely have to have it be true, because if they're convinced enough, if they're committed enough, then it will become true. So there was this guy who's like 60 years old. It's one of my favorite photographs ever. He went to Times Square, where it was supposed to happen at 6 p.m. on that day. That, you know, there was supposed to, the earth was supposed to crack in half or some such thing at exactly 6 p.m. because of, you know, time would work like that in a biblical world, right? 6 p.m. Eastern time, sure. And so this picture is, here he is on Times Square. It's 2 minutes after 6, and he's looking at his watch as there's a crowd of people around him laughing their asses off, because he sold everything he had, and he spent all of his money in his declining years. He's now completely broke. He spent $160,000 on billboards warning people that the world was about to end.
Yeah.
So now this destitute man doesn't talk about the lesson that he's learned. He's talked about how his faith has been strengthened, which is a fallacy called the backfire effect.
And denial. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolute denial.
It's like fuck, I just had his name. Wisenant.
Somebody just asked about how there are crazy people in the world. What does that have to do with Christians? She was in a cult following a false teacher. How are Christians blamed for that? How do you know who is the false teacher? I just read something today in the Quran that said that people need to stop worshiping their false gods and believe in Allah. How do you know that Allah is not a false god? And in the same passage, it's warning that Christians are all going to go to hell because they attribute other people to God. And they say that God has children and other such things. So the Christians are all going to hell. They're all going to the Muslim hell. And the Muslims are all going to the Christian hell. And everybody else realizes that the Christians and the Muslims are just making shit up that nobody's really going to go to a hell. We're all going to come back as cows.
Actually, I really like this idea that there is no heaven. You simply go to the religion that claims what hell you're going to go to. Like you just, it's like a domino effect, you know. I'm very fascinated with this concept.
I like this cow idea.
Yeah, no, but yeah, the cow's fine too.
Free milk. Like I read in the Quran also recently in the the second book, it says it's a challenge to try and prove the Quran false and try to prove that the prophet is not called by God. And anyone who can't, or anyone who is unsuccessful, will be met by enraged followers who are armed with stones and fire. Like, so it's a challenge and it's also a threat.
But the trick about that is that you're not supposed to write a book that's better than the Quran. You're supposed to write a book that's like the Quran. And that's a paradox, because I can do a book that's better than the Quran. I can do a book that's more accurate than the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
But
I can't do a book that's like the Quran because it won't be like the Quran enough. And if it is, then it's too much like it to just be a copy. And that's what they're going for.
Yeah. So what does like even mean? And I'm like, if you're starting a religion, shameless plug by Oz down there.
Oh no, Oz has been plugging. He's plugged like 3 different books at this point.
I've noticed. But like that should be
Islam for Dummies.
that should be the most obvious red flag to anybody, right? If you
plug your books. I have them all on my Kindle.
if you start a religion and then very early on in your religious book you say that Allah has chosen me to be the prophet, and if anyone tries and attempts to prove that wrong, they are going to be burned and stoned to death. Like that should be an automatic red flag, but it's not for some reason. They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I don't get it. I really don't.
Any being worthy of worship would not want to be worshipped. If it was important to God that I believe in him, he knows how to convince me that he's real. He knows that the exactly wrong way to do that is to connect me with a whole bunch of religious zealots who are all telling conflicting lies, contradicting each other, and all claiming to be the absolute truth. You get 12 representatives of 12 different religions and religious denominations, and they're all claiming to have the absolute truth. It's not even possible that they all do. They all contradict each other. Some of them are intra-contradictory in their own religion. So it's possible that maybe one of them has the absolute truth and the others are at least partially wrong. And it's far more likely that they're all wrong. And it's certain that they are all wrong, at least to some degree. But for whatever reason, I can't get believers to understand that. They don't understand like logic.
I always like to point out to Muslims that Muhammad claimed to be the final prophet and the final word of God was revealed to him. Like, oh, well, the Bible says the same thing. Twice in the Old Testament, once in the New Testament, no one shall add to or take away from the revelation of God.
Okay,
right? So there it is.
No one shall add to this word of God until they brought in the New Testament?
Yeah.
In the Old Testament,
which also says no one's going to add to the New Testament?
In the Old Testament, it was no one shall add to or take away from the law. And then the New Testament, it was no one shall add and take away from the revelation.
And then the Muslims add the Quran.
And then
the Mormons add the Book of Mormon.
Oh, but there's been many books besides that. I mean,
yeah, but those are the major ones.
Varying cults. Just they didn't catch on as quick.
Yeah,
there's the Adi Granth of the Sikhs.
There you go.
And then there's the Kitab-i-Aqdas by Baha'u'llah.
There you go.
Wow, that was a lot of words that I've never heard before. But yeah, like you've got all these different players in Scientology as well. Fucking Paul in the Old Testament claims to have been visited by Jesus. No witness. He says there's 2 witnesses, but
Paul says a lot of crazy shit.
Yeah. So like
he says that dreams are talking to him.
Yeah.
He says dreams talk to everybody
multiple times. He says,
and he says that there are angels in the earth, angels who are delivering false doctrine. Angels.
Yeah. So you see this pattern of people who claim to have these revelations from God that there were no witnesses to, that make themselves a prophet and like it's the same shit over and over and over again, and it keeps happening. And I'm like, but you're like, no, this is the right one, and this group was like, no, this was the right one. This group was like, no, this was the right one. I'm like, do you not? And then we over here as skeptics are just like, do y'all not see what's happening here?
I want to tell a story really quick, if that's okay.
Sure.
If you guys are cool with that.
I may need another beer.
I mean, I'll be quick.
We'll try to have things wrapped up here in about 15 more minutes.
Yeah, okay. It's a quick one. Just in junior high, I remember doing a class. It was just in my English class, and they were trying to bring up the concept of need and understanding need versus want. And I realized this is like late, like it was supposed to be like a philosophical concept, but they made a list of people, like if the world ended and there was one shelter that could supply like 12 people to continue on in the world. And they were like, here's a list of people. There's 15 people. Of the 15, you have to pick 12. Who would you put in the box to save and like let the others die? And they put like, you have like a priest, and you have a doctor, nurse, a fertile woman, a small child, and like et cetera, et cetera. And my argument was just like, well, you could put everyone in there except the priest, because it doesn't matter what religion he is, they'll all kill each other trying to fight over why they didn't put the priest in. I almost got suspended.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah.
But she didn't clarify it was like Christian or like it was some form of religious leader, and they were like, well, the religious leader needs to go in there, and everyone agreed. Apparently, the religious leader needs to be part of the new established order. And I was like, I disagree entirely. Like, I don't understand why this is a need. This is a want. Like,
I just noticed another comment from
go for it.
Person.
Yeah,
JJ says that Satan is the master of deception, and his demons, fallen angels, they are behind the false teachers. Except that Satan doesn't have any demons, and the Bible is completely wrong. Well, the Christian interpretation of the Bible is completely wrong when it comes to Satan.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The whole story about Satan being fallen from heaven, that was Isaiah making fun of Babylonian astrology.
That's right.
That was never supposed to be that there was a war between God and a third of the angels. That was a whole different story. Satan was never the snake in the garden either. That's not even possible. Not only does the Bible not say that, the Bible doesn't even allow that. But that's the common interpretation anyway. So God curses the snake, the serpent, to be cursed, to crawl in his belly all of the rest of his days, right? So this is the origin of snakes, according to this fable. That's all that is. This has nothing to do with Satan. The very first time that Satan appears by name is in a story chronologically after that one, and Satan is walking, and it says he's walking right at the beginning there. And God and Satan are friends. They've never had a falling out. So the two stories, Genesis 3 and Job, they're not related. They're not by the same author. These are not the same characters. When it says in Revelations that serpent is that old serpent, it's that old serpent with 7 heads standing on the beach. It's standing, not crawling on his belly. It's not the same character. Jesus said that the Pharisees were all vipers and that they were the sons of Satan. He wasn't being literal. He wasn't saying that they were the serpent from Genesis, the same serpent from Revelations. This is just people trying to interconnect things in really bad, stupid ways. In the Garden of Eden story, the character of the serpent that a lot of Christians want to pretend is Satan, he is the only character in that story who did not lie. Everybody else in that story lied, including God.
Boom. I always like to point out that the serpent in the Epic of Gilgamesh, there's another serpent that
it's the same serpent, by the way.
It is. That's what I'm getting at.
That one correlates.
Yeah, like that. You have Gilgamesh, who undergoes this epic quest to attain immortality or to restore his youth, and he takes a bath in the river, and the serpent steals a plant that granted him that eternal life. So the serpent stole eternal life or tricked Gilgamesh out of getting eternal life. The same way.
That was the story. That's actually the story of Adapa.
Yeah, that's Adapa as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Adapa was told, he was warned that he's going to go meet the gods and that the gods were deceptive and that the gods may want to kill him. And so if the gods offer him anything to eat, he should refuse it. And the food that the gods offered him was not the food of death, it was the food of eternal life. And Adapa had wisely, followed counsel and refused the food. But in so doing, he because he's the first man, he damned humanity to be mortal. And that's another one of the fables. There's a collection of fables on which the Adam and Eve story is based. There's not a word of truth in any of that.
Yeah.
It's all at best allegory. It's all symbolic meanings. It's entirely metaphor. There was never two trees that you could cut down and make firewood out of or build a house. Snakes can't talk. No matter what the hell. Right?
And
that's the part that gets me. Okay, no, snakes can talk.
I was going to say.
Here's another thing that Christians don't understand their own fables. Yes, fables. That's the appropriate word. One could even go so far as to say in some cases fairy tale. But in this, right now, we're talking about a fable. There were two trees magically enchanted in that garden, not just one. There wasn't just the cursed tree that if you eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, obviously a metaphor, right? Everywhere that the Bible says fruit of, everywhere else except Genesis, it's always talking about the results of actions taken or choices made. Same thing applies in Genesis. The only time when that was taken literally, it wasn't an actual fruit. If in the Garden of Eden, you can either remain as you always were, childlike innocence, and you can live forever this way, or you can learn about morality and all of that, and you'll never be able to go home again. That's that old adage. You will have then achieved maturity like unto the gods. That was the moral of that story. The other tree that no Christian pays attention to. They all want to say that Adam brought death into the world. He couldn't have, because he was given a choice between two trees. The fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the fruit of the tree of eternal life. And right at the end, I think it's Genesis 3, God says he has to get Adam and Eve out of the garden quickly, lest they eat from the fruit of the tree of eternal life. Because if he did, then he would live forever. He was given this choice before he sinned, that he could live forever if he ate of that tree. So he's not going to live forever if he does not eat of that tree. Right? Again, logic.
Logic would follow, right?
Right. Just logic bounces off the foreheads of the one.
Oh, shit. Warnock's here?
We got Dave in the house. Is that a ball python, Oz?
Yes.
Yes.
I had one of those for a while.
And
somebody asked a question I want to answer. Canadian $10.
Yeah.
Did you ask this one? Do you?
Is this the one?
Yep.
Do you believe morals can be created outside of religion? I don't believe morals can be created inside of religion.
Amen.
I like that one.
Very well said.
Morals,
Preach.
whether something is moral, has to have a reason why it is.
Yeah.
Now, we all understand, because we evolved as a social species, we all have come to trust the people who stand by their word and who do their job and who have empathy for their family, friends, and fellows. Those are the people who population mechanics tends to favor, while there are always aberrations, people with dysfunctional mirror neurons or underdeveloped frontal lobes or whatever, who are always going to be selfish and that sort of thing. Those people tend to be ostracized from society, either by being banished, imprisoned, or killed. Right? But we all understand that you don't just walk up to somebody and punch them in the face and take all their stuff. Everybody understands that is immoral, and they understand why that is immoral. We have this rule about, and every religion has this. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's not a Christian thing. That's an everybody thing.
Yeah, that is nothing new.
Everybody had that long before Christianity. So we understand what morality is, and religion wants to teach the very opposite of that. It wants you to maintain belief. It wants you to kill the unbeliever. It wants you to kill people who have any kind of aberrant idea. If they don't fall into exactly what they're told to believe, then you are supposed to kill them on the word of one or two witnesses. And if we can't kill them in this life, then we threaten them with eternal torture in the next life. So there's nothing moral about religion whatsoever.
Very good. I think, as much as I hate to do this, I think that's a very good note to end things here. Aron, this was very fun. I hope you had enjoyed yourself.
I did.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, he should have brought the snake out earlier because that's entertaining.
Yeah.
It is entertaining.
I want to throw out.
He's a
really quick,
baby. Go ahead.
It is.
I don't know if Aron has a Discord, but I do know that there are quite a few people that would love to say hi to him if he'd be willing to do the after party.
Yeah, I don't do Discord.
That's fine. In that case, they heard it here, folks. I will jump on the Discord for a little bit if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, I'll jump on as well. We can do it on my Discord.
Cool.
Oz,
I just have a question. Aron, we do once a month. We do a really fun episode, and it's called whiskey, bourbon, and cigars. And usually Captain Dadpool, Dave Warnock, myself, Biddy, and all we do is focus on the outlandish verses and stories in the Bible.
yeah, it's a good time.
And
throw in some from the Quran just for shits.
I
and
wouldn't know.
We haven't done that yet. Let's do the Quran.
we can.
the Quran's got some doozies.
And we could definitely do that. And kind of go back and forth. Maybe instead of doing an Old Testament and a New Testament with the Bible, we can do one from the Bible and one from the Quran.
I really want to do a Book of Mormon one at some point, though.
Oh yeah, bring up some shit from the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
I would love that. The steel and the horses that they had in South America that nobody really had in South America.
Yeah, I heard about those.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask Aron, would you be interested in hanging out with a bunch of knuckleheads and talking?
Yeah, it's just a matter of when.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if I have the evening open, then yeah, sure.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, it's a blast.
Okay.
All right. Well, real quick, Aron, do you mind? Want to plug your stuff one more time, really quick, before we sign off?
Yes. Once again, my sole means of income at this moment is patreon.com/ARONRA. I do need all the help I can get, so please, if you want to support my activism, please do.
Very cool. And I will get those links and I will post them in the description shortly after we sign off here. And yeah, if anyone's interested in an after party in my Discord, there's a public one. Jump right in. I'm gonna go fill my lungs for a minute, but I'll jump on and we'll just we'll shoot shit for a while till we all fall asleep. All right. Thanks again, Aron. This was a huge honor having you on my show. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you. I don't see it as being an honor, but yeah, thank you.
It is.
Well,
I've learned humility,
and I'd love to pick your brains some more about paleontology sometime. So.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Well, y'all have a good night. End broadcast. There.